liberation just have vastly different understandings of what liberation is for.
I haven't seen this much importance and attention.
The story itself is a really wonderful, really great setup.
Tractor beam has been engaged.
There we go. Sorry, I don't know what's happening here. Why is it still having the overlay? Oh, I pushed the wrong button, guys. Sorry. Is that right? No. Oh, there we go. Sorry
There we
about
go.
that. I don't know what happened there. I don't know what's going on. There we go. Anyways, welcome to the Tractor Beam Comics reviews on the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network. Today is Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. It's the 67th week of comics. Is that right? No, it's the 27th, 26th week of comics. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm going to move that out of the way. 27th week of comics in 2024. But we're not. We're going to talk about comics very, very shortly, very succinctly, because we're going to do something else. I'm Matthew, and he's Chris, and we got a guest on. You can see this. He's a guest to the Tractor Beam. He's not a guest to me. Not so much a guest to Chris. It's my partner in crime over at Ion Canon. It's Mr. Joel Davis. How are you doing, Joel?
Good. I'm not used to being on the bottom. But yeah, I love it. Good to be here.
Good to be here. Chris, how are you doing this week?
I'm trying to stay cool on Mustafar because essentially that's what I'm dealing with here in New Jersey and elsewhere. It's no end in sight for like 90 plus and that degrees with like 99% humidity every damn day. So I'm doing my best. If you hear some loud noise out of my end, it's the air conditioner that's loud as heck because don't have central air, but I have an in-window air unit, which is about a 40-year-old air conditioner, give or take. So that thing puts off some noise. So yeah, apologies for the unusual noise if you can hear it.
We've definitely heard worse. I gotta say, with 3 people on, we see like the Vader quotes. You will be mine. It will all be mine, and we have no context for that unless you read the Darth Vader 2015 comic. Then you know exactly where that's from. But just funny seeing a different view there. Yeah, because we're talking about we're talking about the Acolyte, episode 7, choices. Normally, if this were Ion Canon, I'd have a bit of an intro. I will do quick plugs very quickly to get those out of the way. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Ion Canon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD, and at STARRAPTER. That's on Twitter and YouTube. Chris, you got Outer Rim Transmissions going on. Feel free to plug away. Go for it.
Yeah, we're talking about the very thing we're talking about tonight. Acolyte every week. So if you want more thoughts on Acolyte, tune back in on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern over on the Star Raptor YouTube channel. That's where we do that. And I just I recorded. It's not up yet, but the reviews for the comics this week, or more like one comic, I should say.
Yeah. Singular, comic singular. We'll get to that in a hot second. And then of course at the Ion Canon Podcast, Mondays 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. Joel and I going through the Acolyte again. We usually get guests on. This past Monday we weren't able to get a guest on. We had another guest on next week and the next 2 weeks after that. So all that, just going through this show because we want to. That's the thing we're talking about. That being said, Chris, you really want to do a bit of a quick rundown. Oh, that's interesting. Do a bit of a quick rundown on High Republic Adventures and Ahsoka #1. Just very, very quickly. Go for it. First of all, that's a cool cover.
Yeah, I mean, come on here. This is an awesome cover.
Is it worth buying the comic?
I mean, it depends on your perspective because I enjoyed the heck out of this issue. I gotta say, man. I know you don't really care about these things, but I've gotten to a point where now this is the 3rd one. By the way, this is written by Rodney Barnes. The incredible Rodney Barnes is doing great work with the Inquisitors miniseries, issue #1. Stephen Cummings, another veteran with Star Wars comics on the art. But I mean, I've just settled down with these adaptations, just enjoy them for what they are. And Mando season 1, Mando season 2, it's like still got hit with the, oh, it's not original enough. There's not enough in here, enough meat on the bone to warrant buying these things. But I went into this assuming that's going to be the case, and I got more enjoyment out of it from having the open mindset that it wasn't going to introduce anything new. But it reminded me of how much I liked the opening episode of Ahsoka Season 1, Episode 1, with the first appearance of Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati in comic book form. So for the collectors alone, you're going to want to pick this up because first appearances are always going to sell for very good on the aftermarket there. So there's a lot of variant covers. I was looking through them at the local shop, but it's really good. It's a really well-paced issue, very good with the art and overall. Like anytime Ahsoka's on there, you could feel like that people can mess that up because she's an alien species and a little bit unorthodox discoloration, but every single shot, I will say, it's consistent. There's a lot of consistent, good artwork, good action, flows very nicely. So it's one of the best adaptations as far as like the screen transferring to a page that I've read. So I wanted to make sure I give it its due because I did enjoy it more than I was expecting, actually.
That's good to know. I think we're going to get into expectations and realities quite a bit in this episode. So that's good to have in mind. And then However Adventures, we will talk about that one next week. You'll have a longer conversation about that one, but very quickly for what's good to know.
Yeah, real quick, while I open up the discussion, you might want to modify the mic a little bit. I did notice the volume went down quite a bit. Yeah, you figure that out. I'll give my opening salvo on this one real quick. So I just really enjoyed this one. This opens up a brand new arc for the story here, and it's going to be called The Evacuation Run. So what I like about this issue is it goes to different angles, different characters, and different experiences that are all adding up to the same thing. I loved this playfulness where we're at risk and we're at danger, but there's still two characters, Zine and Lula, are very much in the same mindset of, oh, I want to marry her, and they go asking advice from Court to Falzala.
Yeah, it's funny.
Individually, multiple times, and it's a great kind of comedic, but also like sweet kind of moment that's peppered throughout this issue, while simultaneously introducing the Tarkins. We actually get like the ancestors of Grand Moff Tarkin. We get Severin, and we get the character of, oh my gosh, I just lost
Lady something, some lady.
Lady Krevlin Tarkin.
Yeah.
And we get this nice sweet moment as well with this other Aloxian named Glint, and using her mask as a step stool to reach something, and then it freaks out like, oh my gosh, it's like being naked or something.
Taboo.
So that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun there. And then just seeing like the stuff with Crash Angua and tying into Crash Landing with Crix, ending up at the Gaze Electric with a Path Engine, and it's like there's a lot that happens in this issue, and I don't know why I'm always surprised every time I open up an issue of the High Republic Adventures. Like, even though it is aimed for all audiences, I actually spend more time absorbing and comprehending the content in this more than I do some of the Marvel comics. Like, they always feel so meaty. There's always so much on the bone with these issues because DJO just does a great job of adding complexities, and he does a great job of the character development every single issue. He's just like got so much consistency when it comes to just putting these characters in places that you didn't think of, and they're just going somewhere every issue. I mean, some of these Marvel comics are like, okay, what we read through them, like some of the Vader issues specifically, it's like, okay, like how did this push the characters forward? And
it's true.
Plot. This is very story heavy, and that I appreciate. So we can talk about this more next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more next week. First of all, if I do this, is that better with the mic?
Yeah, at one point you're actually too loud. So
is this better? Is this better? So I noticed
that's better now.
Okay, I'm being like cardioid. What's going on, man? Okay, let me do that. It's been how long since I've been using this mic, and I'm using it finally for the first time. All right, is that better? Is that better? That sounds great.
Yeah, that's good. That's great.
Okay, so there we go. Now I know. For some reason I thought it was. What can you say? Anyway, it's an SM58, so I don't know. But now we know. I don't. I promise we're more organized here.
The saga of the mics continue.
Figure it out. Anyways, Joel, thanks for joining us. There
You're
we go.
welcome.
Why don't we dive right in? So yeah, again, we'll talk more about High Republic Adventures number 7 next week. I did read it, so it wasn't too spoiled. Don't worry. But talk about that next week, and then yeah, so we can dive right in here and spend as much time as we need talking about this wild episode that came out last night. So this is also different. This is also a weird thing. Just want to say, I've said this before. Chris, you're just busy on Mondays for good reason, and so you couldn't come on Canon. I'm like, why not just have Tractor?
I actually could have come on Monday. Actually,
You could have come on this Monday. That's what,
the one time I was
Yeah.
free that day, but it was
and one
too late
time
by the
we
I realized.
had an open slot. That's okay.
I know.
That's funny. Anyways, that's all good. We're here tonight. We're talking about doing something different because Joel, usually we got a whole week to spend on an episode. This was 24 hours. This was. We will have another. We will do a full Iron Cannon episode with a guest on Monday and see how things change. But yeah, I wanted just the three of us to actually have a chat and have Chris on. So this is kind of being Iron Cannon-esque. I'll lead the discussion into the notes, but usually Joel, you do such a great job. So I'm kind of basing it off of what you tend to do. So you're giving the Iron Cannon treatment here on the Tractor Beam. Let's dive right into episode 7 choices. Joel, you're the guest, so I'll throw this to you first. What were your overall thoughts on this episode and on the series as a whole so far?
It sucks, and no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay. No, I really liked it. I thought it was a really strong episode this week overall. It was nice. It was good to kind of go back to what happened on. Is it Brendock? I always forget the plant's name. It's Brendock. See, I'll get Paul Demnick now and Brendock mixed up, and thank you.
There we go.
Thank you for that. Thank you, fandom. Yeah, so what happened on Brendock, and I was really pleased with how everyone was sort of portrayed as, what exactly happened from Sol to Indara to Torben to Kelnaka in terms of what the Jedi were actually doing there and why certain things happened the way they happened. I think it makes Sol very interesting that, his heart was kind of in the right place, but his actions really screwed up a kid's life. And I think the surprise character for me was Indara, because in the first flashback, she felt the most hostile. And then in this one, she's like, just because they're witches be weird sometimes. We can't just go lightsabers swinging every time we meet some weird witches.
Right.
We should report this to the council, and the council said no. So, sort of like she's actually the most level-headed one in the bunch. So that was interesting. And yeah, it's also, of course, the big. Sorry to hear my dad in the background. It also, the big lore reveal. Actually, not that lore reveal. I'm talking about the book lore reveal that we're all excited about. But yeah, overall, I thought it was pretty good. But also, it makes me wonder, like, what? I mean, we got this at the end, of course. Like, what does the final episode going to focus on in terms of like what the core of this season is all about and what's sort of going to be left, not by the wayside of obviously, but sort of like left for another time.
Yeah,
a story for another time.
Not for season 2. Yeah, that's a good point about Indara. Yeah, it's true. Indara and the council, the voice of reason throughout this. So a bit of a surprise there, and we'll get into all that. Basically everything you just listed off, Joel. So don't worry. And Joel, I guess I forgot to mention the series as a whole. What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Oh, I've been enjoying it week to week. I especially think these last few episodes have been really strong, and I think a lot of it will probably hinge on how that finale goes down in terms of like strong episode. I think for myself and probably people who aren't just completely already turned off by it are probably gonna come out of it like, okay, yeah, that was a good ending. A good ending can really make you forgive a lot. So yeah, I'm excited. Overall, the last few episodes really strong since the 5th one. So
nice. Chris, your turn to do the rundown, the Chris Abbott rundown. What are your thoughts on this episode, and how are you feeling about the series as a whole?
Oh man, I hate to start any Star Wars review by saying those words, but I mean that's literally how I'm feeling. I mean, I there's hits and there's misses in this series.
Yeah.
In this episode specifically, my biggest thing was so much wasted time on. We are on the penultimate episode. What are we doing here, guys? With showing the same stuff over and over. I get it, like you got to show like the juxtaposition of certain things, but I feel like there was, as far as runtime is concerned, there's probably only like 5 to 10 minutes of new actual scenes, and I'm scratching my head trying to figure out like why this is exactly relevant now when we are so far into the series and it might be ending in next episode. I want to hope there's a season 2, because if this is how we end things next week for finale, I just don't see how there's any time to tie up half the loose threads. And another thing was like we get some really good stuff with characters like Torben and Soul, but it's just like going across the surface. We're not getting enough, and I'm seeing where like they could have done more with these characters. Like there's some really interesting things there, but everything just feels so rushed. It just feels so truncated. Like it's just getting squeezed in here right at the end that it just left me wanting a lot more than what I've seen. And like there was a couple interesting things here. Like I like the idea of the divergences of the Force and all that, but it just needed more time to breathe. In the series as a whole, I think no matter what happens, they introduced a lot of new things. And I'll give credit to Dominic Jones on Star Wars Underworld podcast. He was saying one of the things that feels missing is the overall galaxy feel of this show. We are still like dealing with such a small subset when there's some interesting things they dealt with like politics and stuff. Like they have like the one line about political enemies, and then we have that one quick call with Finestra and the Abednito senator for like that 30 seconds. And there's a lot of good stuff there that you can draw on with the Jedi and how they're falling in regards to the Senate, the Senate and the Republic as a whole, and the different commerce guilds and different things like that. But like we're skimming the surface. I feel like there needs to be more of a grandiose kind of like, where does this all actually fit in with the galaxy? The scope feels off. I feel like the pacing of the show has been shooting itself in the foot constantly with how they sequence these episodes. Just like this episode feels like we had so much good momentum built up off of episode 5 and 6, especially with last week. Like, I keep saying every time that Chimera shows up on screen, like it elevates the show for me. Like he is my favorite character, and to take another week off where we're not seeing him, that definitely feels like there's a void there. I was hoping, I assumed there was going to be another flashback, but I was hoping we wouldn't have to spend an entire another 40-minute episode on it. I think there could have been other things more effectively interweaving the present day storyline with the previous, with the flashback, because it just feels like things are taking too much of a back seat. We're only getting like 6 episodes of the current storyline. So I'm just trying to figure out like why they keep arguing. What is the actual importance of all this? I mean, yeah, I know the importance, but in a long scheme of things, it just feels like, I don't know. If you're going to do flashbacks like these, this needed to be a 12-episode season, not an 8-episode season. Every episode for 8 episodes really feels like it's impactful, especially when you only have 30 minutes for most of these episodes. So that's how I'm feeling right now. A little mixed.
That's fair. I was going to talk about the runtime. Yeah, just definitely less story, less time with these stories. So, yeah, the real estate is more valuable real estate. I'll say, and we'll get to the relationship between this episode and the wider series. I mean, that's going to be the whole a big part of what we talk about, but specifically the framing of it in a minute. But I'll say, yeah, this episode it was well put together. It was well edited. Again, in line, episodes 5 and 6 and 3, the most fluid storytelling. I will say that it helped, like you said, that we've seen most of this episode before, but it is from the Jedi's perspective, and so that felt different enough to me. I do see what you mean by we've seen a lot of this before, but especially given limited real estate, but it did feel like a different episode to me, and we see a little more. I will get into how I felt about the big reveal very quickly. We'll get to that. I have a lot to say about that one. Back and forth, very mixed about that. I'm wondering with the series as a whole, and Chris, you and I were messaging. I think Joel, we might have made messaging too about this. And we're talking about with the Ahsoka comic. Is our feelings about the show and our feelings about this episode a bit of a victim of expectations? And I don't mean to say that our expectations were wrong, right? Our expectations, we probably were right to expect a show that does connect more with the wider galaxy, that does comment more on the Jedi and the Republic and the Sith, and heading towards not a beeline. It's definitely not going to be a beeline towards Order 66, but aiming towards that and leaning towards that. And I think it is a little bit good to know I'm not alone with what I was saying on Monday about if the season doesn't end up having wider implications, we're going to be a little disappointed. Good character story, but what's kind of it's hard to say. It's not like to say.
I mean, is that make it a bad show, or does that just make us bad fans?
So that's what I was asking on Monday. That's what I was asking on Monday, and that's where I'm not sure. And that's kind of where I was back and forth about on Monday. Does that make it a bad show? Not necessarily. Just that's our experience in the moment. Is okay. We want it to connect because it's about the Acolyte and the Sith and the Jedi.
Yeah, I think it comes with the expectation. Really, I mean, you think about all these Star Wars shows and what they've done so far. Bad Batch telling a big story about how you're getting clones into conscripted stormtroopers. What happens with the clones? You get Andor with the starts of the rebellion. You get Ahsoka with the returning of Thrawn. Like, you have all these tentpole type of moments that I don't think you can blame the fans for really wanting to have something elevated, because why are you making this show?
Yeah.
You only have so many resources as Disney and Lucasfilm. You want to make sure that every one of these shows is going to have those talking points that's going to warrant its creation. Why wasn't this just a novel? It could have just been a High Republic novel, like Epilogue or something. Like, there's a reason why you spend this money on sets, $180 million, and characters and costumes. Like, this has to be a big swing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And
I don't agree with that. I don't think Star Wars always needs to be big swings.
And you're mentioning the skeleton crew on Monday, right?
Oh yeah, like that's not going to have anything to do with anything. I guarantee you that. Like, I guarantee a skeleton crew will be a very self-contained story. That I can promise.
Yeah. So it's a question. Will they, if it doesn't connect, can it still be a satisfying character story? Yeah, I think it can. It just right now we're asking the question. Now another thing Joel you brought up on Monday was the Filoni trajectory. I forget what you called it, but where
a Filoni formula.
Filoni formula, yeah, whatever. Where a show starts kind of small, and then Dave has a smirk like, just you wait, and it grows bigger. So that could be the case too, as well.
Well, and that depends if it gets to season 2. So at that point,
and that's the thing. It would have to get season 2. I'm convinced. A week from now, we'll be talking about. Oh yeah, at the end, the Stranger and Asha will be back for Acolyte season 2. Like
they better. They need to. I think Disney and Lucasfilm needs to read the room.
Yeah.
They got to look at social media and how the fans are talking. Yeah. You can't do what they did with Ahsoka. That's what really kind of irritated me. Right. Was how Ahsoka ended, and it took like 2 or 3 months for them to actually say something. It's like, guys, like, you left off on about 3 or 4 unsatisfying cliffhangers, which just felt.
I just agree with you about the social media stuff, because here's the thing: we don't really matter as fans. We really don't. And also, Ahsoka was in a strike, so there's that. They probably were waiting for the strike to end.
I mean,
so,
also this. I think
permeating. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the card is printed. I think the close, as in the thing that shows up on screen, the sequence, it's printed. I mean, I think it's both, right, Joel? I mean, you guys are both right.
It's going. it's going past social media. No, I'm actually encountering people in public, like at my job and stuff. They're like, "Dude, what's going on with Acolyte?" Like, I think it's gone past just social media. Like the average Star Wars fans are now like questioning it a little bit, from my experience.
I mean,
Maybe I'm
but
just
also,
dealing with subset of people, but
also, you know, is Disney still interested in this streaming stuff? 'Cause I don't know.
Maybe it's another movie. Acolyte season 2, another movie. Sorry.
I mean, that'd be interesting. I mean, I would like that. High Republic movie, yes, please.
okay, there we go.
Actually,
Make that happen.
So anyway, let's move on. We could talk about this till the Shacks come home, but we can get into. And Chris, you mentioned you know, the relationship sort of between this episode and the wider plot line, and how we have the limited real estate, and so it's a question of why not have more of that in this episode. So one thing we were wondering, where was it going to be like, was it going to be unmediated like episode 3 was, just dive right into the story at the time, or was it going to make use of that setup in episode 6 with Soul sitting down to talk to May, the mask maybe talking to Osha or whatever, to use that framing device? No, they don't. They make it unmediated, just like episode 3. Chris, you started talking about that, so I'll let you keep going. What did you think of that choice, just to dive all the way in?
Yeah, now that you brought it up, I would have liked it a lot more if that was the case.
As in, if it was mediated by the framing?
Yeah, I think that would have been a cool choice to be like, all right, Soul sitting down, be like, this is how the night went, and then having something tell Osha, and that way, you know. So.
How come? Like, would it have just tied better to the story, or?
Yeah, it just seems like, they set it up that way in the last episode. They set it up at least with Soul telling her that, and it would have been good to like kind of get in and out of the flashback a little bit more, to kind of show these characters more. And I think that's the one big thing that I didn't like about episode 3 too, is it's like, oh, we just learned about all these characters. Oh wait, we're going into a flashback, and we're going to be away from these characters for a week. Then we come back to the characters, and it feels like distance because it's episode 4, and that one was just rather shallow in my opinion. So it was kind of, in my eyes, like already problematic. So then anyway, it didn't really. I guess it doesn't really matter that much, but I thought it would have been at least a different spin in episode 3 or something.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things this episode, having it now as episode 7, makes us do is, and we'll get to this at the end. It's kind of the big point at the end, is makes us have to remember, okay, there's the eclipse between Osha and May, and that they've gone in these other directions, and Osha's obviously going to be the Acolyte. May, who knows what? She's kind of there with the Jedi, and it's kind of the opposite. And so, looking back, we have to remember that. Yeah, having the if it was more mediated, we would have just had it in front of us. Maybe they could explicitly make those connections for us. Maybe it's better to make us work. I don't know. Joel, what do you think of the choice to make it unmediated, like in episode 3?
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, you know, people have brought up the Rashomon effect, but the Rashomon effect is mediated, right? You know, you have, in Last Jedi, you have Luke telling his version, you have Kylo telling his version, and then you actually do get a more truthful version from Luke eventually. But again, it's all like through mediation. This one is not. So I don't know. I just kind of, I do kind of find it interesting that, you know, like, this is, although it's also interesting because, like, it's not Rashomon, but episode 3 is very much from the witches' perspective, and this one is from the Jedi, right? Like, the witches don't come off as great in this episode compared to episode 3, where they came off a lot better, and the Jedi were coming off a lot more hostile. You know, like I said, you know, Indara was very hostile in episode 3. In episode 7, you know, she's like, oh, she's actually the voice of reason here. And Soul's just the kind of the wants to be like the savior here person. So yeah, I got really no opinion on it. I just think it's kind of interesting. Maybe episode 8 will just end. Will just jump us into them already knowing, and then it's like how they reacted.
I mean, just thinking about how I keep hammering on this on the algorithm polarization and whatnot. I mean, it's almost I will almost wonder, and this is speculating to episode 8. Uh, you know, we can have facts. We can have facts presented to us, but we're still going to interpret those facts differently. And so I wonder if episode 8 it's still going to be the reason they did it this way is so we would have the facts and for us to interpret those facts. And we have between episodes 3 and 7, we have the full story now. I'm pretty sure, more or less. I mean, we don't fully know. I guess we can guess the fire led to the explosions. May with the book led to the fire led to the explosions. More or less, we have the whole story.
That part, real quick, that part really bothered me.
The explosion.
I'm like just that little fire caused all that. Like that was a little far fetched for me. I mean, I don't know the electrical output of everything about what's going on there, but that was like, really, that's what did the whole place in.
It's an old mine. It's an old mine. I don't know. You're right.
I've seen some places where like one spark and then kaboom, the whole place explodes up.
There, sad story here in Toronto. A church, about a few weeks ago. Apparently, like there was like a live stream camera that was just still plugged in, and there was like an electrical spark in the church burned down. So it can happen. Yeah, it can happen if it's just let go. I mean, maybe not. It wasn't that fast with May, but there might have been gas around. Yeah, it is a bit of an odd thing that you think of it, but that's the story. We are given that story. It's just interesting. Now the question is, what do May and O should do with that, with those facts? But I agree, kind of, Chris, with you. We could have even started to see that in this episode if it was framed. So, yeah, Joel, I don't quite know what to think of it, but it's just an interesting choice. Before we really get into the meat and potatoes, we got Iron Canon Tractor Beam here, the home of High Republic on the Star Wars Underworld Network, collectively. So there's two really cool nerdy things that came up in this episode. Hyperspace disaster, which we all know as the Great Disaster, the Hetzel disaster. It would have been fun if Endara had name dropped the Nile. But I guess for more casual fans who haven't read High Republic, which is probably most people watching this show, haven't read Light of the Jedi. Yeah, a hyperspace disaster. That, I can see that, but I'm guessing all three of us were collectively having a gleeful Leo Point reaction to that one. The Great Disaster, of course. Yeah. The Galaxy Run, not Galaxy Run. What's it called? Legacy Run.
Legacy Run. Yeah.
And of the paths and the Nile kind of doing that thing by accident, sort of. It's been a while since I read that book.
It's so neat, seeing with Jedi Survivor, seeing how there was an emergence that happened with the planet that starts with a T at the end of it.
Tanalorr. No, that's Tanalorr. That's
Tanalorr. Yeah. You have Kobo. Wait, Kobo? No, there was the moon. There was the moon that was hit. The moon of. But anyways, like seeing more stories now. Yeah. Apparently, Outlaws is gonna have a High Republic cruiser that's crashed in Outlaws somewhere. You get to explore, but like just the permeation of the books now and everything from live action to games, everything else. It's like it's all hitting now, and it's great to see. But yeah, so I'm guessing like there was parts of the Legacy Run that must have smashed into this planet 100 years ago, and they thought it was devoid of life.
Yeah.
And divergence and all that kind of stuff. It was a cool way of going about it.
Yeah. So that Divergence is the next nerdy thing that comes up. So the planet presumably is completely taken out in terms of life by hyperspace disaster. Maybe even by the blight. Who knows? That'll be fun.
That's what I was thinking too, a little bit. Yeah.
But cool. I guess everything is just folded into the hyperspace disaster somehow. That'd be interesting. That'd be really fascinating. It's something like a book that came out 2 months ago, and now it's been referenced on the screen. That would be a record. But no, it's a book that came out 3 years ago. But still, there's a vergence in the Force somehow, somewhere, and that's why this lifeless planet now has life on it. A vergence, just like a virgin to say, looking for that Qui-Gon believes about Anakin. Not centered on a person. Joel, you had a quote from Leslie Headland. I wanted you to
Yeah.
go into.
So
to
hey, Leslie Headland gave a great couple interviews today about the episode. She did actually mention Darth Plagueis during this interview, by the way.
It's like
What?
specifically the one about the virgins. I'm
Yeah,
curious about that one.
I'll look at the Virgins one. Okay, so the person asked, Virgins have played an important part in Star Wars since the original trilogy. Even if not everyone is familiar with the term, but there are different types. What can you tell us specifically about the nature of the Virgins on Brendok? That's what Hedden had to say. This was very important to me. Dave Filoni and Pablo Hidalgo, this was very important to me, Dave Filoni and Pablo Hidalgo, that the girls are not a virgin. The girls themselves are not a virgin of the Force. They needed, again, however, they got here, the act of creating them was going to need amplification. Therefore, we came around to the decision that the virgins was on Brendog, and that it remained mysterious. So that way, if we went back to the future's telling of the story, we could uncover a little bit more about what is actually there. It was important that this type of virgin was a natural one as opposed to within a human being or an alien. That's what you have to say.
Wait, what?
So the
So
virgins are place.
they didn't explain. I mean, they didn't really do a good job of explaining that at all in the show, because I was under assumption that they said the twins were the virgins. So that's like a huge misdirect. But
Yeah.
I mean, for my idea, like when I think of Virgins of the Force, I believe I'm getting this correct. That's where the Sith temples were built. Sith temples were built on Virgins of the Force because it's that natural power that they were able to utilize, and then the Jedi temples later on were built on top of the Sith temples, which is on top of the Virgins, for them to get the power of meditation and all that from the Force. So, yeah, that was interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, to say it's not the twins. I mean, Torben, as we'll get to in a bit, how trustworthy is he in the heat of the moment?
He ignites the glue a little too quickly.
Among other things. Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating that it's a place, not a person. Well, more fascinating that it's a mystery. That they've intentionally decided it's a mystery for season 2, and we're going to keep talking about this. We're going to keep hammering this.
If there's a season 2.
If there's a season 2, there's got to be a season 2 to explore the origins of these twins and whatnot. Joel, both the Great Disaster and the Virgins, and just all the overall nerdiness of that came up in this episode. How did that strike you? What did you think of that?
I wasn't actually 100% sure if it was the Great Disaster they were talking about,
Really?
or it was like just another hyperspace disaster. Until someone said, "Oh yeah, actually no, wait, they said like 100 years ago." So that lines up actually perfectly. So it's like somebody lined that up perfectly. So then somebody on a forum said, it's funny. Then that means the Great Disaster leads to this, which probably can indirectly lead to the Phantom Menace stuff. So yeah, thank you, Mark Young-Rowe. You started the Skywalker saga.
There we go.
So no, that was interesting. Yeah, the Virgin stuff was interesting too. Very, very Qui-Gon. I come from Virgins, of course. Sort of like, oh, interesting. They're using those big words. Words. I actually kind of found it funny they were using like a what is that? One of those metal detectors.
That
was a little odd.
The moss into the container.
That's how we use to detect the Force with a metal detector. I think I got the Force right here. Nope, that's not the Force. That's just some keys.
I mean, the one thing I thought with the moss, putting the moss into the container, I mean, it's miraculous moss. So maybe something in that to see if there's something going on there. Yeah, there we go. Chris, how do you feel about all the nerdy stuff in this episode?
It was good, but it didn't go deep enough.
Yeah.
Specifically pertaining to the explanation of what exactly are the twins. I mean, we get more into it. Like, I'm still wrapping my head around. I don't know if you guys are better at like summarizing that, but for me, it was still very murky, and I was hoping to get more of like a concrete answer on what exactly they are.
They haven't explained it. Like Soul asks Anastasia, and she ignores the question. She just says that's the whole good intentions line. So, you're right. It hasn't been explained. maybe that's one of those things, just like what we got to with this episode. That's just a mystery that's gotten delayed and just built up and built up and built
Okay.
up. That hasn't been answered yet.
Hopefully
That-
next episode.
Yeah, hopefully, because well, and they probably should have this episode, but we don't know.
She mentioned to watch season 2. To go wait for not season 2. Wait for next episode for an answer about something. There's a lot in that interview. I should send it to you.
Is it on StarWars.com?
Oh, really?
No, it was this was a Nerdist interview.
Oh, Nerdist. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'll put in the
I'll
private
start
chat.
with Amy Ratcliffe still, but there we go. Yeah, no, that's definitely worth reading. Yeah, it's okay. It's interesting. I mean,
She herself does not know if there's a season 2. By the way, she was like, "No one's told me anything." So
she knows it's season 2. I mean, who knows when this interview was done? This interview might have been.
this was during the show, though. So this was like during.
Yeah, it came out. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm pretty convinced, just my gut, that she knows. We know how Lucasfilm does these things, right? So
I don't know. Well, Disney Plus is kind of going down.
yeah, no, it'll be a movie. It'll be a movie. I'll believe it when I see it. All right, let's get right to it off the hop. I guess not quite off the hop. We've kind of got into a little bit in the weeds, but I really want to get into the big reveal now. I have a whole bunch of thoughts here, and I'm gonna just talk.
Okay.
That's one of the things. Because I'll be honest, my first, and this might change by Monday. We'll see, and this definitely might change by Tuesday. I found this whole thing to be a bit of a head scratcher. Another head scratcher, like in episode 4 with May turning so quickly, and I don't mean it's not believable. It's more, and I'll get to what I mean, but well, let's talk what the reveal is. What terrible things happened that Torben and Kalnaka and Sol, and I guess a little bit Indara are so broken up about 16 years later. So Torben, he rushes in. He just wants to go home. And so he's like, yeah, like I was saying, the kids are the virgins, so let's go. And then so they break into the mine there. Sol kills Anasea, kills the mother. Turns out May actually started the fire, like we talked about. But of course, there's an accident because she's 8. And the rest of this is the weirdest one. The rest of the coven pulling a TLJ Luke because of the being in Kalnaka's head, and that wears them out. And I find it a head scratcher. Here's what I find a head scratcher. So again, it's also a casualty of expectations. It's just expectations built up within the show itself. Yeah, killing the mother is terrible. It is horrible. It's going to devastate these kids, ruin their kids. No, might ruin their lives. Definitely can see why it has a mark on Sol's life. Yeah, why it's a mark on Sol's soul. But I kind of expected the horrible thing to be bigger and even more horrible.
Same.
And I get to what I was expecting. And here's why. Here's why is that Sol keeps building this up. I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you what happened. Torben and Kalnaka, they at least Torben's taking the Barash vow. There's Barash right there. Torben's taking the Barash vow. Kalnaka's kind of taking a vow of seclusion a little bit. Not quite the Barash vow necessarily, but the Wookiee equivalent, if you will. Interestingly enough, the two characters that get the witches get in their heads, they're the ones who go off in hiding. Maybe there's some kind of cleansing, purifying there. Torben would have been more guilty, it seems like, to be able to maybe to do what he just take the poison so easily. I don't know. And a big one is all the stuff with Vern defending the institution and a lot of these questions about the Jedi and their role in expanding the Republic and policing the Republic, and the quote good intentions that would lead to Order 66. And so and of course, yeah, that having that in view. And again, everything with episode 3, we saw, okay, the Jedi to blame, the Jedi to blame. I thought, and here's what I was thinking, kind of expecting a little bit. What would be more horrible is if it was something that intentional that the Jedi chose to do, intentional that the order that Indara, Joel, like you were saying, Indara is more hostile there. That it's something about the Jedi itself that is has a corrupting influence on them going in, and instead, as we see, and I can get to why this still might work, and it could be almost the Filoni formula a little bit, and this little seed building up into something bigger, but this is maybe this is because I'm halfway through this story. This is midpoint for me. For those of us reading High Republic, this is the midpoint. This is the beginning. So maybe at this point they're kind of on the turn. I don't know. But instead, the council, this is still the council of the High Republic. They make the right call. They're the voice of reason. They say, no, don't split up these twins. Don't let this girl leave her family. She's 8 years old. She may not fully know what she wants. Even if she does want to go. We've interfered too much. We're going to actually leave these witches alone, leave these folks alone to do their thing on this planet. Still do the field research, what the heck happened with the virgins, figure that out. But it isn't something inherent to the Jedi of this time already. And so maybe, unlike in the late Republic where, those good intentions lead them to be wiped out. Again, we've debated, Joel and I, we've debated this ad nauseum about the Jedi kind of villains or victims or both or whatever. I think the thing is, instead of it being intentional, I'm almost done, I promise. The big horrible reveal, it's basically a series of
unfortunate events. Yeah,
series of unfortunate events, series of unintended mistakes, false impressions on the part of Sol and Torben, but also part of Mother Coral. So the Jedi fear for the twins' lives, part because May, she's 8 again. Her mother, when talking about ascension, she says parts of ourselves we have to face fear, so parts of ourselves must be sacrificed, which is something the Jedi could get behind, could understand, right? And May, all she hears is we must be sacrificed, and so
so they're like, wait, what's going on with this
child sacrifice or
what
something?
The hell,
So can I respond when you're done, or
I'm almost done. Torben rushing in because he wants to go home. He's a petulant teenager. More Anakin than Jecki or Ahsoka. So Jecki would not be that way. She'd be like, okay, what's happening? Let's figure it out. And then Sol's attachment to Osha, and this one, I again with Sol, I do see it fitting with the rest of the series a little better. His attachment to Osha, he chooses her over May on the bridge. Heart-wrenching moment, but it's consistent with everything we've seen of him. Joel, when we were talking about last night, we were messaging about the black cloud, and after with episode 3, it was all, oh yeah, there was a reason the witches are illegal, and who knows why, but you see this black cloud puff up, and maybe if all you know are the Night Sisters on Dathomir, who are actually probably up to no good most of the time, or if you don't know anything, but it's interesting. Torben mentions the Night Sisters, and so they kind of know.
I love that.
So that was a good moment.
If that, but it's good setup to say maybe this is what Sol is thinking. Oh, they're, the kids are in danger, and this is Night Sister magic, so I'm gonna ignite the blue. The kind of buying into why the coven is illegal, even if maybe we should think it's ambiguous and we don't know.
Yeah. And
so again, that moment I get, but I still, the first time I saw it, I exclaimed, "Why? Why would he do that?" And that's almost Indara's response. Why would you do that? Why did you do that? And then, of course, lastly, and then, again, this is the weirdest one for me. Like, why does the Covenant have to all expel themselves after that one? I really don't.
I don't. I have a.
You know, it's just strange. So, I get weird dark side magic, weird magic period. But here's the thing: it is interesting. It's based on Kroll's militant distrust of outsiders, and like she's representing the unreliable perspective.
By the way, we don't see her body. Same.
Yeah, who knows where Coral is? Who knows where Coral is?
We know where our Mother's Anastasia body is.
Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, with Coral, it's a good reminder that, I mean, like with the Clone Wars, right? Where war represents a failure to listen. Heroes are on both sides. Evil is everywhere. This is that somewhat in microscopic. What's the word? In a smaller. I forget the fancy word. In micro, whatever. Miniature. That's the word I'm saying. So yeah. So anyway, those are my thoughts. It was just odd that it was nothing specifically about the Jedi. It was just this series of unfortunate events. Joel, you seemed raring to go about responding to all this, especially maybe Torben, or who knows, whichever one you want to respond to. So, what did you think? First of all, how did you react to the big reveal, and what do you think of it all?
So I'm gonna be honest. I think if they had made the Jedi more nefarious, I think that would have been a very boring decision and just not the good one. I think having the Jedi, I think that's honestly the boring thing, because here's the thing. Acolyte is the most morally complex story, even way more than Andor. Like, this is a way more sophisticated story, quite frankly. Because it's questioning goodness itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Andor doesn't really question goodness. Like, Empire's good, Rebels are good. Empire bad. Sorry, strike that, reverse it. Big time. Empire bad, Rebels good. This is a show about a guy who thinks that these kids are in danger and is going to go out of his way to save them without any of the information, and he just made things 20 times worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it always reminds me a little bit of maybe it's a bit too hard, but like almost like a social services kid person, like maybe didn't get the memo. I mean, or like thoughts like cultural differences made this kid's life worse.
Mm-hmm.
Dealt the white guy. But
your thing.
Yeah, a little bit of that for certainly. And that doesn't mean it's not endemic of the Jedi. I was reading some interesting tweets, and somebody said individual failures can become systematic.
Yeah.
And this is, and even though Dara did say stop, today Dara still covers him up. Yeah. So, this one Jedi got away with it, and then, another one will, another one will, another one will, another one will. Until it all goes to heck in 50 years.
100 years, yeah. Or even starting in 50 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, imagine the good intentions will end up with every Jedi in the galaxy dead. She's predicting Order 66 there. That's interesting. That's a good point. I mean, I was always wanting a more complex view of the Jedi. I think this lets the Jedi off too squeaky clean.
I like that though. I think that's what I think that would have. I think going the other way would have actually been worse. Quite frankly,
it would have been too obvious. Go ahead, Chris.
I think it would have been too obvious, and just honestly, I think people blame the Jedi too often. I think it's just bad discourse and bad nuance in this case.
Chris, you go ahead. Jump right in there.
Yeah, I think a certain degree, you can't make the Jedi evil. I mean, that's when it comes down to it. Like the average watcher of Star Wars or something, they don't want to necessarily see the Jedi as like this corrupt evil force that they've known for 40 years, because people are looking like, what is happening? Like, why is Disney making Jedi like evil all of a sudden? What's going on here? Like, that would be
we're worried about, right?
Yeah, that'd be a huge thing for everybody to be like, wait, well, why are they trying to change the lore? What's happening here? So I like this idea of like, okay, it's not as flashy maybe as me and you wanted, Matthew, but I think it gets the job done to make it not go over the edge. With these are, like I like what what Joel's saying about the morally questionable things. Like they all add up. It's unfortunate the way it ends up, but it leads to logic, you know.
Yeah, and I would argue that if you go too far, if we go way too far with like Jedi are really corrupt stories, I think you do. I think if you talk about undermining themes, that at that point you're looking at like the Rey New Jedi Order film and like, why on earth would Rey ever want to like? At this point, you're making Luke right, and that's not the point of Last Jedi.
Sure.
Luke is not right.
Yep.
So I think you can go too far, and I think
So. I'm
honestly,
saying my point is I don't think this went far enough.
See,
like,
I'm glad
it could be something in the middle, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
See, I think I don't agree. I think this is perfect. I actually knew a lot of people were like worried to go the way you wanted. I think a lot of people like.
Well,
yeah,
I was worried about that too. Like I was worried about it being Jedi villains. I didn't want that. I just wanted maybe something about them again, the good intentions, but even institutionally. Now, to your point, the Andara notices, okay, if you say the truth, then Osha can't become a Jedi at all, and that's not fair to her. So they're all stuck in
ruined her life.
Yeah, they're all stuck in this situation. It kind of relates to, 16 years later, you have Vern keeping all this stuff from the council, and in order to, keep them from, keep them from being too mired in scandal, and what we were talking about on Monday with keeping them from keeping the narrative that they can be the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy. So
I'll also add that I'm kind of glad that at first the council did reject Osha and May for being too old. I think that then it kind of makes Anakin's thing still make sense, and then it's like, okay, Osha in because, well, her life already, we kind of ruined her life, so all right, fine, you can come in, and she failed anyway, so it's like,
Osha succeeded. Kind of she passed the test.
She dropped out though with the Jedi, so.
Oh, eventually, yeah.
Passed the test to get in. They show that, yeah.
Yeah, but later.
Yeah.
Later, she drops out. She was a Padawan.
So so they're like, well, still didn't work out.
I wanna, yeah. I would like to talk about the new additions to lore with. I don't even think we have exactly a name for what these witches, the cult is or the coven is, but
yeah.
First of all, just with possession, I thought that was really cool. That's something new for Star Wars. We've never seen, to my knowledge, somebody being possessed by like witchcraft. Like that was threatening. Kel Naka was gonna kill them all. If it wasn't for Andara, he would have killed all of them.
There's the rebels when they go to Dathomir, Canon and Sabine, a little bit. Right, they're possessed by the Night Sisters.
But I was happy about that though. Like Eunice Guantanamo, he would have been wasted on the show if he didn't do it. They could have gotten anybody else to be in a Wookiee costume, and it was like they did all this press. He walked out on Celebration in full Wookiee costume. It's like, all right, good. I'm happy that wasn't like deleted scenes trailer or something. We actually got to see him do the work and get to see a live action Wookiee with a lightsaber. That was one of the most exciting things for me when the show is getting promoted. It's like, we're gonna actually see something we've never seen before. See the might of a Wookiee. The choreography was great with his leaping abilities, with using the Force, with just the brutal nature of a Wookiee, brutal straight, just it was good. It was good.
I'd still like to see more Kalnaka.
Me too. Oh yeah.
We're getting the Kevin Scott one shot. I have no idea what's up with those tattoos. That could have been kind of a marketing what's going on. But that's coming out in September. So I would have liked to see more. But that was a cool moment for sure. Chris, you mentioned it a little bit. How did you react to the big reveal of everything that happened, and then how are you thinking about it now?
Yeah, I think it was good enough.
Right.
Again, I wanted a little bit more out of it. It makes sense, but it was there was a lot of build up to it, and I guess I was expecting to be a little bit more surprised by it all. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so I think we've kind of gotten through that one. We mentioned a little bit about Osha and May 16 years later. So returning to the main story of the show, and that's, I think the interesting thing about this episode is, yeah, like I was saying off the top, it comes when it does after, after episodes 4 to 6, where a lot happens. The eclipse happened. Um, so kind of showing the events on Brendock now that we've seen that reversal. We see see, well, first of all, knowing that May, yeah, she was in with the Sith, but now she wasn't really ever fully in. She gets mad because Coral and then later the stranger tell her to a little bit. She believed in her family and Ascension. She believed in her deal with the Sith. Maybe she'll somehow, I don't know, probably not believe fully in the Jedi, but maybe in the Force and the light side. She'll find that belonging that she's really after. She clearly, again, showing the story, in the test, she's like, oh yeah, I'm really happy to talk about Ascension. That's, even though she messed up the words because she's 8. What can you do?
Yeah.
But really find that place and belonging. Maybe what she does again in episode 8 is be able to better reconcile with threats to that belonging, the way that Osha represents that threat. She saw Soul kill her mother. Clearly, for the Jedi, for her in that moment, the Jedi are evil and attack unarmed innocents. Right? That's where she's gotten that rage from, where she's gotten that sense from, and that's been developed in her over the last 16 years. And yet, yeah, she looks almost in a, I don't want to say in a better light than in episode 3, but a bit more neutral. And then Osha is the most interesting, again, seeing how she becomes she's going to be the Acolyte, right? Joel, I think
so. I mean, I think it'll be. I don't know anymore, quite frankly, with the show.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I'm pretty convinced. She put on the mask. Well, yeah, I'll get to that. And so, well, because you sent me from a forum or a tweet, I forget what, and I think I talked about it on Monday. Osha. So what really reminds us is at their core, what these characters really want. May wants belonging, wants structure. Osha wants independence, wants the power within, wants to pursue her desires and to make her own destiny. Getting into Torben's head was a bit of a setup to get into Kalnaka's head, but also there's some really haunting parallels between NSA's appeal to Torben and the stranger's seduction of Osha in episode 6. Even using a bit of sexual desire, using as the metaphor for just desire overall, and for connection, but more agency and power to go and affect the world and affect the galaxy. And I mean, that it really brings it home. I mean, we could already see it in episode 3. Now that looking back with the eclipse, we can all, this really brings it home. That she wanted to join the Jedi because they represent independence to her, even though, and the reason it brings it home is because we're seeing it from with Indara and Soul. I want to use a different approach, and she passed because you coached her. Seeing Soul, being so affected by that attachment in ways that do lead to problems later on. Is that and brings it home again because we just saw in episode 6 with with where she's at now with the mask, right? So just thinking about those characters, Chris, I'll throw this to you. When watching episode 7, or maybe when watching it again or whatnot, do the effects of Brendock look different now that we've had episodes 4 to 6? Does what would you see kind of is the effect of the main storyline on the effect on May and Osha as kids?
Yeah, that's a really good question. 'Cause
Yeah.
sometimes they really do feel like separate shows altogether. Like, because they're so separated with
Yeah.
just the characters involved, the looks of everybody, that it, on paper, it's like, wait, how do these things connect? And that's still what I'm kind of struggling with is, what is the importance of all this? And that's why I'm hoping that maybe the master or the villain, if they pull it off and like Coral's somehow the master of
Yeah.
Chimere or something like that, then I'll be like, aha, I see why they were spending so much time here. Because granted, if this is all this is, just to explain their backstory, I don't know if it was exactly warranted the way it needed to be. So, yeah, I don't think it really was that necessary.
It's funny you mentioned that with Coral being the master potentially. So obviously, another thing I was expecting was the Sith to be involved in this.
Yes,
that was surprising that they just not at all, and it's them saying, "Oh, I'm gonna actually go and come. Oh, here's a moment of weakness. Time for us to step in."
There's still time for this stuff. There's still time because, like you said, they didn't give the answer of why they did this experiment with the twins in the first place. So they could still put something in here in the next episode.
I'll just say, I don't want Coral to be the master, and I don't really want the Sith involved with this either. Quite frankly, well, for one, I think if Coral's the master, it's the Sith, especially like Sith master. I think that undermines the whole point of what they're trying to say with the witches and the Jedi. That these institutions are neutral, even if Coral went aggro for like a day, for a few minutes, and caused problems. Like I think that's undermining the message of. I think that's wanting too much to be like one big chess game. As for the Sith, like I don't know, I don't really want like to be like a grand plan here. I sometimes think the Sith are overly chess masters from certain fandoms, and it's like just have them just like find out about this one day. Like, okay, let's just take advantage of this.
Yeah.
Like I think it's too. It's not like the grand plan is like one of those overhyped legends things. Quite frankly, that I think we got to get out of our brains and just realize. Sometimes they just do stuff, and then eventually, once Palpatine's around, it's like, okay, now we can really do stuff.
Well, and that's that other quote that you said about with the path to Plagueis being messy.
I can read it.
You can read that.
Yeah, read it. I don't know about that.
Yeah, read that quote.
Again, let me find it. Here. There you go. Sorry. Okay. So the interviewer said, "This one's for me. I've been waiting many years for Darth Plagueis to show up. Do you know how the whole story of the galaxy far, far away from the Acolyte to him training Palpatine connects?" Edlin says, "Yes, I do. If I continue to get to tell the story. I know how I would like that to play out, and I would say I think it's pretty complicated and messy."
So, yeah, that says that we shouldn't put too much stock in the idea of a grand plan. What I do think it's still possible for Coral to still at least be involved in the Sith somehow. I mean, she sees the girls as her children too. That could just mean that she helped raise them. That's entirely possible. Or as in co-parenting.
She actually gave birth to them, like actually.
But still, so involved in some sort of the dark side. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, she did say she gave
buried them.
Yeah, so very much that biological connection, but also, I mean, she definitely does have the same unreliability. I use that the militancy against the Jedi, that when the stranger is actually being honest, in episode 5, especially in episode 5, that we have. I mean, we see, Darth Sidious and Darth Vader and Darth Tyrannus. They're not fans of the Jedi, not fans of light and life. And Coral, I wouldn't say she's necessarily opposed to light and life, but she takes the violent route. Here's one little thing. It's entirely subjective. Is in part because I was expecting the Sith to be more involved. I was literally expecting them to be looking around trees and looking behind trees. So when Soul is looking behind the tree and sees the twins and sees this hooded figure come out, like, oh, is that the Sith? No, it's Coral. So it's kind of, I don't know if that's at all intentional, but it just Coral just coming out of the blue in a hooded figure, while Soul is also lurking behind the trees as well. it kind of makes me think, kind of makes me feel
Okay.
some connection. She's the one.
I didn't feel that. I just thought like, oh, there's
I
Soul.
know I might be the only one in the world who thinks that, but she, we know, when Soul is lurking in the village, in the mine there, she actually goes and leaves and goes to find him
Yeah.
or prepare, so she can sense him. That could just be
Sure.
because he's more force sensitive.
It's just-
Anyways,
yeah.
yeah, I've said a bunch of that. Sorry, Chris, you wanted to jump in?
Sorry. It's just the idea that she disappeared really to her body. That's why I'm like, okay, they're holding her back for something. I feel
Yeah.
like maybe.
She could very much still be alive. I'm not doubting that. I mean, I too think like, I know my TV tropes since like, okay, you don't show the body,
Mhm.
and she kind of vanishes like where like even
And-
Mother Anastasia like,
Yeah.
got stabbed. She just turned back to normal and then died.
Yeah,
Like where's Coral's body? He just
true. Just in the black smoke.
Yeah. Speaking of which,
Good.
while we're on the topic of the witches and like disappearing act and all that, you briefly touched on this about how they expelled themselves, like all these witches, and that was really creepy.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if like Indara even had a moment of darkness and like somehow
Maybe.
did something to the Force, to kill them intentionally. Like
That's possible.
that seems like it's crazy that those people just willingly sacrificed themselves and just they knew they would die, or I don't know. Like it was an interesting moment, to say the least.
It raises questions. I mean, we know Luke willingly sacrifices himself for the noblest of cause, right? Letting the Resistance go free. Yeah, it's true. It could be, and
are
it could
they
be.
dead? Are they?
I think they're all gone. I think they're all.
I mean, the Jedi would have felt the death. I mean, they always can feel stuff through the Force. Where if they were that determined, they would know, like, okay, they're dead.
Yeah, maybe Indara does. Who knows?
There's like some feedback loop on them to just kill them.
It is kind of odd that they'd leave that one maybe to next week, but it's possible. Joel, I don't know if I asked you this though. Like, what does this episode kind of shade or affect how you see May and Osha in their story overall?
No, not really. I sort of the same as always. May was always the angry one, and Osha was kind of the probably got more darkness in her than we realized, but more calmer one.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe makes May honestly makes May a little more of a psychopath in some ways. I feel like she was ready to go. But it's like also it's like see why she doesn't like the Jedi. I mean,
Sure.
Soul literally stabs her mom in the chest. Oh, and by the way, you guys didn't point something out that I noticed you didn't realize.
Yeah.
Oh, Soul thought that was Osha when she came out.
Yeah.
That's something. That's something that
I wonder if that was just wishful thinking, or maybe he couldn't tell the difference. Who knows?
Maybe. I mean, I mean, he really wanted Osha to be his Padawan, like almost weirdly. Like I don't want to say weirdly, but he was very much like, I think this is supposed to be my Padawan. And he, in that moment, just like, oh gosh, Osha's in trouble. I'm gonna dad up and protect her, even though like made the wrong choice here. So he was definitely letting his attachments cloud his judgment. Which again, I always find funny that we always compare him to Qui-Gon, but yet I feel Qui-Gon had a way better hold on his attachment problem.
Well, and if there's any comparison to Qui-Gon in this, it's Indara in this episode. Literally, she says the same. Don't center your anxieties on, or don't center on your anxieties to Torben. That was an interesting moment. How Indara, she doesn't want to give Torben the answer about the virgins because she wants him to be able to develop the ability to actually figure it out and learn and ask the right questions and be patient. And then Soul is impatient. He just, here's the answer. This is what we're looking for. And Dara gives him grief for that. And that's why it says that's why you don't have a Padawan. I wonder if that's part of kind of indicative of Soul's. Well, it's just another example of Soul rushing in and
Right.
trying to fix something.
Also,
give the answers to fix something, and so
Also, one more weird thing about the witches that Headland's brought up in an interview, which I think is kind of just randomly interesting.
yeah.
Headland at least considers magic and the Force different things.
Weird.
So, like, the Night Sisters use magic, and the witches kind of use a bit of the Force and magic.
Yeah, I wonder what George would say about that. Not that he's around to say anything definitive, but
You say, I don't know, what day is it? Tuesday?
that's true. That's true.
Goobity goobity.
There was one more thing I was going to say. I forget what I was going to say, but yeah, maybe it'll come to me. Yeah. So I mean, I guess those are all my notes and my thoughts. I guess yeah. No, I guess maybe what I was going to say about about Osha and Soul and Osha. Yeah, is what? Yeah. Well, no. Oh, yeah. This is definitely what I was going to say. Got it. Yeah. I mean, definitely. Joel, you talked about May being more emotional and Osha being more calm. And the stranger saying May was a mistake. She wasn't fully in. She, the moment, this makes a bit more sense actually of her turn a little bit. The moment she realizes that Osha is fine, was alive, she turns because she's a bit more emotional, a bit more flighty, if I can use those terms.
Yeah.
More emotional, emotion driven.
Mm-hmm.
And May is a lot calmer and can actually take her desires and harness them and plot out and move them into a certain direction, right? Move them towards the Jedi, move them away from the Jedi to the mechanic thing, kind of back to the Jedi, and now very much a capable instrument in the stranger's hand. It's
Right.
here are your desires. You're going to be smart enough to be able to actually set out and stick to them and commit to them. That's the thing. I mean, a Jedi has to do that. A Jedi has to face fear and be willing to tell the truth and say what you want.
Mm-hmm.
A Sith does have to face fear. It just does, and have to sacrifice part of themselves as well. It's just that the thing they're sacrificing is their moral scruples.
Also, I would like to add as well with the emotional thing. It's fascinating how, I think maybe we get a little too mixed up with like emotions are a bad thing, and the Jedi, like the Sith are like emotional and stuff like that. But when you really look at it, and I look at Palpatine as kind of my go-to Sith. Vader, a little bit not so much. I mean, sometimes yes, sometimes in certain comics he's more of the Sith thing. But I'm going to use Palpatine for an example here. Look at Palpatine. He is not. I mean, he's arrogant, but he is not like he doesn't let his emotions control him in a weird way, right? Like he doesn't let his anger, like sometimes he does. I mean, sometimes he will, but it's like look at Palpatine. He is mostly calm, and then until he's happy, he's like cackling like a crazy person. But like he's mostly calm. He's like he's like
in control.
We in control. It's like he doesn't let his anger control him. He's like very much like no, we gotta do this 50-step plan. We gotta like okay. This happened. Now I gotta rearrange. Like he's not just kind of like kill them all. Sometimes he did like that, but like most of the time, especially when he was rising power, he very much was like, okay, gotta calm myself, and then kind of gotta think this through. Gotta think the grand plan here.
Yeah.
And that's why again, Osha I think can make the better Sith Lord because she's got more of that control of herself, which you need to be a Sith Lord, especially a really good Sith Lord compared to May. We probably would go more the Maul or even Kylo Ren route. Like, yeah, you can be a dark sider, but it's like you're not gonna be a good one. You're not gonna be a competent one, baby.
I mean,
sorry.
Anakin, he held out for what 20 years,
right.
But then 24 years. But he was the more emotional one. I mean, he ends up being very. Vader. Everything with Vader is very calm and controlled rage, but he ends up they're portraying the Sith too. Spoiler alert: Anakin Skywalker comes back to become the Jedi. So yeah, that's an interesting thing, emotion. Yeah, the Jedi detachment can actually. I mean, it's also there's such thing as Sith detachment, and maybe emotion, especially with May looking for this belonging, Rey looking for her belonging. That isn't detachment, and that's maybe looking ahead to how she will Master Rey will view all this is to say, okay, actually have attachment and connection as long as it's for the greater good. Is that it's a good point. It's an interesting thing that this show's actually said. It's interesting you brought up. Chris, do you have any further thoughts on all that with the detachment attachment?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the attachment's concerned, it's interesting to see how we have. I just like the idea of the twins. I mean, just going the swap that's happening, and why I'm so interested in seeing just twins biologically are close in mindset and different things, birth and everything. It's a phenomenon that happens. So to see how they both react to these, we have Chimera, we have Soul, and now they're kind of swapping, and how their attachments vary to these other figures now that they're in proximity to is very curious. And if anything that the show's ever, leaves a lasting message with is how they dealt with the twins and the switch between their allegiances, I think is definitely one of the better parts that I've got to experience from watching the show. So
at the end of the day, it will end up a good character story, whatever it connects or not. So that's true too. And Amanda Stenberg and the I forget their names, Laura and Leia. What's their name?
They're actual twins, by the way.
Yeah, they're actual.
Good
they do look a little different. I can tell. But great acting all around. That's all I got. You have any, maybe looking ahead just a little bit? What do you hope for, Chris? What do you hope for season 8 or episode 8 rather?
I hope it's a season 8. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Let's go.
What do you hope for episode 8?
Episode 8. It's gonna be difficult. Like, are we gonna see another cool lightsaber battle? I feel like we probably should. Things that need to be resolved are Soul needs to die. I mean, it's really got to happen. This guy can't be going around with all this knowledge about what happened that night. You can't know about a Sith being alive and getting away with it. So I think there's a very good chance that May also die. I'm just trying to figure out what the fate of either of the twins. They perhaps could both die, because the way that Leslie Headland talked about the show is that there's going to be a sense of finality to it.
Yeah.
So it can be okay, you just have this one season of TV, it doesn't get renewed. Then, so I feel like part of it is most of these cast members have to die in that case. If there's a Sith running around, they don't get to telling more of the story. It's going to be how are they going to know that information to be alive? Even Chimera said, all the Jedi, all of you have to die right now because this has to be kept under wraps. So I'm just curious to see who is going to come out of this on top. I feel like one of the twins, if not both, might actually perish by the end of this thing. And then prediction is we're going to see Yoda at the end of this thing. I think we're finally we've got mentions of the High Council multiple times, and I feel like I don't hear anybody talking about this. But I feel like that could be the one thing where people go, oh, I completely forgot that this could happen, and here it is, the little green guy finally getting told about what happened on Brendock, and we might have Vernestra talking to Yoda at the end of the episode, saying something to sweep it under the rug. Oh, it was Soul the whole time, or something. Use them as a scapegoat.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I feel like that's the problem, right? There's so many loose threads here that if this is only one season, there's a lot of heavy lifting on this episode, and I'm very curious to see if it's going to crash and burn or if it's going to be satisfying.
Yeah, I am presenting another option to Soul. Abarashval is a possibility. It's a way of doing penance, right? There's a reason Torben takes it. I think Kalnaka takes something like that. But I do. That being said, I do see. Here's the other speculation there. There's the whole thing, killing a Jedi without the weapon, killing the dream. That's also again a reference to the Clone Wars and Order 66. But maybe I don't know. Maybe something about Osha fulfilling May's deal in a way. Either that or not. Like just keep fulfill or to say, killing, maybe she's the Jedi that she has to kill without a weapon. Part of herself that has to be sacrificed. Because here's the thing: is every Sith, to become a Sith, you have to commit some atrocity, especially against your past self. And so maybe Osha somehow, for some reason, it'll be a lot of work to build that up from where they're at now in one episode. But maybe Osha has to take him out, because that's the thing. I'm trying to think. The way, however this mask spins you held me down with this attachment. My whole life. You ruined my life. I would have joined the Jedi, but everything went to hell, went to Malachor. Something to say, get her to actually do that, and that she's the Jedi that she kills without a weapon, by killing the Dream, by completely going over to the dark side. Just thinking about that now.
Well, I mean, to echo Chris's point, Hedlund has talked about how this, and I think rightfully so. I think this is the one thing I can critique even Ahsoka about. Like, there should be a sense of finality to the season, like the season had an arc. Even I think in Mando season 1 weirdly had an arc, even though they kind of teased at the end. Here's Moff Gideon with the Darksaber. Sure. But it's like season 1 had very much an arc, like where Din was at the beginning is no longer at the end, and get the baby growth. In terms of what needs to get wrapped up, I think that is very much the question that I think we as fans, but also the show is going to reveal. Do we as fans hold the same importance as what the writers were doing? I don't know.
The writers are also fans, so.
But in terms of do the writers think Darth Plagueis need to show up at the end?
I don't think that either.
Although she had mentioned and teased about tune in next week and find out. Maybe you'll find out what happened, where the twins came from, and why they're 2 and 1 and half a dozen of the other. But it will be interesting to see what finality looks like. Even though I'm sure there are certain things that probably could continue on. This is kind of a weird example, but sort of if you watch just the prequels and one of the last shots is Anakin and Vader and Palpatine's looking at the Death Star. That's some finality. You don't really have to continue. You should, because it's great. But there it is. There's your 57. But there's your finality. It's dark and sad. Sure. There could be a sense of finality of just Osha and be it Chimere, his master, an actual Sith Lord, Palpatine in his 20s, because Palpatine's actually secretly older, I don't know, walking off and you and I are going to do great things together. That could be finality. In a sense, right? I don't know what an actual a cliffhanger looks like in the same way. Ahsoka's a cliffhanger, right? That's a cliffhanger with Balin looking out there. So,
literally standing on the
with that I gotta speak to the manager energy.
Literally a mountain.
Exactly. So again, I guess it kind of is going to depend on a little bit of expectation, sure, and also what does the show think was important compared to what we thought was important.
Right, which is the thing this show's played with massively.
Right? Oh, certainly. The show. To quote my friend, quote Ellie from Dodge of Ferrix, she thinks that it's a good show, but it's not an easy show, and I can definitely think to that part of it's not an easy show.
Yeah. Do you guys have any last thoughts? Right.
Yeah. I have thoughts. So
you have more thoughts, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I always have more to say, don't I? But the actor that was cast from Supergirl has not appeared yet. I'm sorry, I forget the gentleman's name.
I know who you're talking about. So
this guy was not officially on the cast roster, but he is heavily rumored to be. He's the guy that plays Martian Manhunter in the great Supergirl series.
David Harewood?
Yep, that's the guy.
Okay.
People are speculating that he is the master of Chimere. And I feel the best possible way to end this series, again, speculate irresponsibly here for a moment, is they tie, let's say Osha survives, she goes off with Chimera, and he's like, I'm going to take you to my man. Basically, long story short, this entire season was just getting her on the journey to become an actual acolyte.
Yeah.
And we're leaving all this Jedi stuff in the past. Like after this season, all that's gone. And then we jump into this last final scene of them going to a location of note for big fans of like Code
Korriban.
Like go to Korriban or Morriban, whatever they want to call it, or something that's very like fans would know that from instantly, like a location, Malachor or something like. They go there, and then that gives us a tease of what season 2 could be like, where it's like, okay, no more Jedi Temple stuff, of course. We are like going into training of a Sith, like proper Sith training, and I think that would get people to just go nuts. And again, that's probably, I'm not going to get my hopes up too much on that, but like I would like to see like this chapter close of all the Jedi storytelling. Season 2, we're going full blown Sith stuff. I mean, maybe
I would.
Yeah. Too old.
I mean, I would like that too myself. Don't get me wrong. And to be fair, what Hedlund said might not actually be what we see on screen or what we feel on screen, obviously. Mm-hmm. So sometimes what a creator thinks of their own work might not be how we feel. That's the artistic process.
Yeah.
But I do. My only counter to that would be: is that too much teasing to make that finality that Hedlund's talking about? Again, it could still happen, and she just might be. She might be just playing up for the interviews, but if we were to take her at her word, which I do, I mean, I don't think you'd be lying if we don't think you would execute well or whatnot.
Yeah.
I do wonder if is that too teasy? Is that too teasy? I don't know. That is, I will have to see. I mean, again, but I do think David Haywood's still going to be a thing. I still think
maybe he's on the council. Who knows?
Maybe
he's Master Belzetifar. Grand Master Belzetifar. I mean,
would he still be alive?
Maybe not.
No,
he'd be a little old. Be like 160.
118.
I mean, who knows how old humans can be in the galaxy far away? In Star Trek, they can be 140 and still go.
I mean, yeah, like Lord of the Rings, the Numenorians could be like over 100.
Yeah, you never know.
Old.
You never know.
But also, one other thing is the title has been rumored or leaked or something to be called Doom.
Okay, so, I'll just say the last title was also leaked and it was wrong.
Okay.
So.
Oh.
Good to know.
Because I was going to say that wouldn't really fit with what the titles we've got, like Cause, the next episode with Doom. How would those be linked?
What choices
have to be linked?
Oh, yeah, choice and consequences, or choices and What's kind of the consequences is kind of a compliment to choices, maybe.
But the cast in interviews have really been hyping up this last episode, like, oh, it's gonna blow it. I mean, that's their job, though, right? Like they gotta sell it. They're not gonna be like, oh, it's okay, it's good. Like they're, but I mean, I don't know. Just the energy I was picking up was like, all right, there is gonna be some wow moments.
I'll say this, Chris. I'll say this. I do think we'll get one last duel. I do think there'll be a duel.
Yeah.
I think if there's a duel, I think that will definitely make people excited because the duels in this show are great.
Choreography is amazing.
And so, I think it's to be Osha versus Soul.
Oh, I would.
Again,
I
think
that'd be sick.
You have to kill Soul in order to become an Acolyte, right?
And that's where that poster is going to come from, where we get the blood with the lightsaber.
Yeah.
It'd be Soul's blood, or something that cauterizes. You don't really get.
Again, I want to reiterate this theory. She completes May's deal by killing a Jedi without a weapon because she's the Jedi she's killing. I mean, the Anakin thing, Vader Anakin thing, right? Anakin was weak.
Wow.
Thing, so.
I'll ask you this. I mean, I'm sorry to extend this, but I just want to ask a speculation about your theory, Matthew.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it right now, but go ahead.
Do you think it will be Osha and like pure Anakin, I hate you, rage? Or do you think it will be a bit more of a nuanced thing where, to quote Hedlund again, she said, this is Frozen meets Kill Bill. Frozen's all about the sisters. Do you think it's more like, sorry, Soul, but, I got to do this to free my sister. I've let her hang too long. It's time I got to help my sister. So you got to die, dude. It's like, is it more like sadness.
I don't think it's going to have to
kind
do anything to do with May. I don't know if it's going to have anything to do with May, frankly. I don't know if everything we've seen with Osha, she doesn't care as much about May as May cares about her. And that's part of her path to the dark side, right? And maybe part of May's path back to the light is having that attachment. I do think, to your point, though, I mean, everything we've seen, the way they've quoted Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith, the way, on
Attack of Clones, honestly.
Yeah, on Karnak when they're quoting Revenge of the Sith from I think is it the Jedi are evil, you're a prisoner, that whole dialogue. I think that's what the quote was. Yeah, I think there is going to be some reference to the high ground, but if it might be even the same words, but the performance is going to be a lot more, a lot more even keel. Not so much bitter rage, but resentment, and just betrayal. Like you controlled me from my, you were my Padawan. I loved you. You were my daughter. I loved you. You were my, you controlled me. You squelched me. Almost even to say, I can't even say the word hate, because she doesn't maybe not feel it's gonna be a lot colder. But that's, I don't know. Again, we're speculating. The script is already written. The episode's already delivered. It's already printed. Good to go. Including the title card for season 2. I'm convinced of that. I could be wrong. There's a cold take for me.
There you go.
There you go. All right. I think we're at 96 minutes. 96 minutes. So I think we're good time to wrap it up. Any last thoughts, Chris? Give you 1 minute for any last thoughts. Go for it.
All right. So yeah, for the episode, like speculation or just this episode.
Anything you want to get off your chest finally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's great seeing witchcraft in Star Wars, more of it. We're getting a high off of Acolyte with the Night Sisters.
Yeah.
Great seeing a possessed Wookiee Jedi. I finally got my fill of that. I could have used more, but it was still cool to see Juana Santamo on there just kicking butt. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, as far as that's concerned, that's great. And I am still excited for next week. I gotta see how this all ends, because the first Star Wars mystery, we still have a lot of questions, and there's been no shortage of those questions. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how it all wraps up. There we go.
Joel, any last thoughts, last comments?
Don't go in expecting it to be easy. I think at this point is what I will leave everyone off with.
Yeah, that's a great point. I just gave a lot of speculation. I could be completely wrong. This show, for its kind of uneven quality, given us loads and loads and loads to talk about. I do not regret a second about devoting Iron Canon to this. Do not regret a second of devoting this episode of the Tractor Beam to this. That it's been definitely worth diving in, worth talking about it. It's getting the things we do here. The what is Star Wars about? It's really pushed those things. All right, that's a good place to wrap things up. Before we do, this is still Tractor Beam.
Yeah,
still Tractor Beam. There are comics coming out. There's a comic coming out next week.
Yes.
But also, again, talk about the comic that came out this past week. Came out today. Yeah, ongoing number 48, or ongoing number 8, Matthew. I'm number 48.
I'm confused.
40.
So close to 50. That's not 40. I don't want to start over.
Charles, just start over. You have 42 issues left. No, I'm going
more post Empire stories.
No more.
We went on long enough. Come on. 4.5 years, whatever, 3.5 years. Yeah, ongoing number 48. Yeah, I guess it's moving into kind of the. Why am I blanking? Where are we at? Like, I should know. What happened number 47? I think more.
We're going on. Well, that wrapped up the Lando storyline.
That wrapped up the Lando thing. So we're
now
going.
We're going to do something with Leia with the Alderaan refugees or something like that.
Yes. Okay. That's right. Yeah, and then 48 and 49 and then 50 will be the big one that we've talked about. Yeah, I guess it's interesting. They're kind of doing little wrapping things up, tying up some bows. I do want to see more about with Mon Mothma and what she's up to, and just the Massacre Solus and all that. So I don't know when that's coming, but coming along. And then Hierophant Adventures number 6. Sorry,
real quick, I was like,
Yeah.
hey, we have a game called Star Wars Outlaws that they keep hinting at Rebel and Empire conflict that's pretty big in the game. So
Yeah.
I think that anything we might be dissatisfied that might not get resolved, such as Bothan's and Death Star plans, I think that maybe wait till the end of August and we might get some answers there.
There we go.
I have a feeling. I'm getting more feel. I've been hearing more, like watching more videos with like developers, and they're like, yeah, there's some big we haven't been talking about.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought that would be more connected, because that's the thing with the Underworld. It's not connected often.
Are we talking about Outlaws here?
Yeah.
Oh, so you think Outlaws is going to be the Death Star plan thing?
Yep, they say the biggest heist in the galaxy. What else is bigger than the heist for the plans the Bothan's got? You know.
Which is set up a little bit somewhere like an ongoing around 20. Just doing with that couple on the second Death Star.
Yep.
They revealed that the Death Star exists, I think.
Yeah, they have the plans. And then Father Valance had his memory wiped by the Inferno Squadron to prevent that, but then he ended up getting the memory back and all that stuff. So,
so maybe Violet's in this, who knows?
Oh, man, that'd be crazy. That'd be so awesome.
No, he's not dead. He's still going. He's still alive. He has the hand out to the woman. Anyway, I'll go number 48. That's coming. And then we'll talk about High Republic Adventures number 7. I will reread it. I read it 2 hours ago, but I'll read it again. And we'll talk about it some more, because it was a good issue. I liked it. So there we go. Chris, I mean, what are you looking forward to in ongoing 48, you think?
I'm looking forward to, again, another video game tie-in.
Yeah.
There was a video game way back in the day created by Amy Hennig. It was called Ragtag, Project Ragtag, or something like that.
Oh,
and that storyline was dealing with this exact same thing, I think, where it's like you have these Alderaanian refugees and whatnot. So I'm wondering if they're gonna maybe I don't know if we'll ever know this, but fold in some big storylines of these survivors out there, and we've seen various characters that are Alderaanian with backgrounds that have survived that whole destruction. So that's gonna be good to get a little bit into that. But real quick, throwing it over to Joel as a little audible here. So you picked up that Imperial handbook thing, right?
Yes, I did.
Have you read any of it?
Yeah, I've been reading it. Let's see if I can. There you go. You can see it.
Good.
Right.
So have you come across any interesting, tantalizing tidbits so far of lore that we aren't really privy to?
There was an interesting thing about Coruscant in the sequel trilogy, which I found really interesting.
Is this the Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire, or is this the Imperial?
Yes.
Yeah.
Rise and Fall. So there was that.
Interesting.
So there was that.
The First Order?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's that. There is a very clever little way in how they get around the fact that the Mandoverse isn't finished yet to get around that. There are little hints about this is post-Exegol, so our heroes are trying to build something, trying to constitute something. They're not sure if it's going to be a republic or what, but they're trying just to organize something together. There's that, and a lot of this book is just sort of really fleshing out what we have and kind of making it more of a cohesive whole. And also it really shows that Palpatine's return really screwed up the First Order's conquest of the galaxy. Well, at least I think it does. I would definitely recommend this book. I like it quite a bit.
There you go, Chris. You should get it then. There we go. I think it's on Audible too, right? It's gonna be on Audible.
No.
That's where
I think this is something you should probably just buy as a book.
I know it's a prose book, but anyway. I just want to get back to ongoing 48 just very quickly. Mark Waid's Leia comic from 2015, introducing us to Evan Verlaine. And that was all about the Alderaanian refugees. So that's another thing that's happening, is wrapping up everything. These comics that coming up to the 10-year mark, with again the Giuseppe Camuncoli puzzle variant, connecting variant, whatever it's called, between Vader 50 and ongoing 50. Yeah, it'd be okay. That's good to hear. That I mean, I don't read the solicit, so I don't know, but it's good to hear that. Yeah, it's gonna pick that up and see what they've been up to.
Well, I think I'm assuming because it
Yeah.
said something about Alderaan, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming it has to do it. I could be wrong though.
That makes sense. So, anyways, yeah, check that out. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, so check that out. Yeah, go to your local comic book shop. Howard Book Adventures is on the stands now, and then ongoing number 48 will be on the stands on Wednesday, in the next week of comics, and then you'll come right back here 8 p.m. East, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We'll talk all about it. Chris, Joel, thanks for sticking it out. An hour 45. Let's get Island Cannon length. Yeah. Joel, thanks again for coming on. Tractor Beam, looking forward to a conversation on Monday. Where can they find you on the internet?
Oh, me. You can find me at JID2021 on Twitter, JID2021 on Twitter, and of course at the Ion Cannon Pod. Of course, at Ion Cannon Pod, and of course the Star Wars Underworld Discord. We're not doing anything this week, but maybe next week we'll do something fun.
I need to put this in the notes. Discord, include Discord. I keep forgetting. There we go. Yes, check out the Discord server. Link in the description below. Yeah, Chris, again, great episode, great conversation. Where can they find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me over on Twitter where I'm talking about Star Wars and going to be posting a lot for San Diego Comic-Con in 2 weeks' time. So be very happy to be there for the first time. So you can follow my adventures around the Californian coast as I'll be heading out there. And then YouTube, of course, youtube.com/StarRaptor. We'll be having a very similar kind of episode on Outer Rim Transmission this upcoming Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Another Acolyte episode review, so stay tuned for that. But thanks as always. This was a nice little sidestep from what we normally do. And it's always good to have Joel on here because it's always fun going back and forth. So
yeah. No, it's definitely good, great conversation. I'm glad we got the three of us got together to do this because, wouldn't have had the opportunity. Well, we might have had the opportunity on Monday. Now I know. It's all good.
I wasn't gonna be like, I gotta know.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Threads. I'm in EUG1138, although I don't really use Threads all that much. Yeah. I'm in EUG1138 and Instagram beaches.foodie, FOODIE. Get some if you want to salivate, you want to get some food on your timeline. Bless your timeline with ice cream. That's what I do. And of course Twitter, NEUG485, tweeting about soccer a lot, but among other things, bit of Star Wars there at Ion Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Kind of get that back rolling sometime. And then of course, this Monday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, we are going to talk about this episode yet again on the Ion Cannon podcast. Tomorrow night, of course, the flagship Star Wars Underworld at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, talking all about this episode. That's what we're going to do. And then, as mentioned, roll it right around other stories that come out in Star Wars called comic books on the Tractor Beam Comics reviews. Next Wednesday, we will be talking about ongoing number 45 and High Republic Adventures number 7. But until then, Chris, Joel, thanks for coming. Happy reading for light and life.